And we are live. Hello everyone, this is My Two Cents, and welcome back to my channel. I apologize, there's been kind of a lack of content lately. I've been busy with a lot of stuff, but my goal is to get at least a few pieces of content out this weekend. First of which is going to be a video response to a YouTuber by the name of Jenna Harmonn. It's been a little while since I've made a video on my playlist, Where Have All the Good Men Gone?, where I basically critique feminist content, where women are making videos complaining about the fact that they're single, all the while ignoring the reason that they are staying single. And this is a great example here. Now, I'm going to first, I'd like to make a disclaimer first. On Miss Harmon's channel, she says specifically on her channel page that if anyone responds to her, she wants to be tagged in the video response. So I have tagged her and left a link back to the original video. The intention for that is not to send an angry mob her way. I don't want anyone rating her video with dislikes and negative comments. And although I have no control over the feedback you choose to provide, the goal of this is to provide a honest critique of the things she's saying here. And to give my own background, so I am a Christian myself, and I grew up in a church that was very heavily invested in what's often called purity culture, which really is just, in my opinion, contains a lot of tenets of hardcore feminism disguised with a Christian veneer. And I think whether Miss Harmonn realizes it or not, she has absorbed many feminist ideals, and the reason she's single is not because God is waiting to give her her right person, as she's probably going to say, but because like so many women today, she has ridiculously high, unrealistic standards and hasn't really asked the question, okay, if she wants all these things in a man, she needs to ask the question, what exactly is she bringing to the table? So let's get started with her video. It's called Done with Online Dating, and she starts by explaining why she's gotten rid of all her online dating apps.
Artificial cyber relationship. And I don't want a cyber relationship. Like, I have enough online friends. Like, I want a real human connection. Like, I want someone tangible that I can see and touch, and like just it to be completely real. So I deleted my profiles, and I don't know if this is true or not, if this is God or if this is me. We'll know in the future looking back at this video. But I just have this like hunch in my spirit that I am gonna meet my partner online, but not on a dating website.
Okay, so first, I want to point out this is extremely common in Christianity today, but especially in Christian women. This idea that God communicates to us through feelings and inward hunches, and that any feeling you have could possibly be divine communication. Now, I know not all of my audience are Christians, but if I challenge anyone out there to show me where in the Bible it actually teaches that God communicates to people in this fashion. If you look in the Bible, we can find lots of examples of God communicating to specific individuals, prophets, apostles, and it's always in a supernatural fashion. God literally and clearly speaks to them a divine message, and further, that message is then validated through some sort of miracle or supernatural event so that the people who bear witness know that it really is coming from God. Specifically, if you look in the book of Deuteronomy, the people of Israel are told that if someone claims to be a prophet and the thing they prophesy doesn't come true, if even one of their prophecies doesn't come true, then they are not really a prophet. And in fact, under the Old Testament law, they were instructed to stone such a person to death because they had falsely used the name of God. But nowhere are you going to find anywhere in the Bible, and again, I've had people challenge me on this. I've been able to show the few verses people have cited, you can show are being taken out of context. There is no basis anywhere in Scripture for this idea that God communicates through feelings. And really, I think the real reason for this is it gives the people who want to embrace this point of view, they are absolved from having to make their own good decisions. In other words, if God is just directly telling me through my feelings what I'm supposed to do, then I don't have to be smart, I don't have to be intelligent, I don't have to be wise. I can date whoever I want, even if people close to me, my parents and advisors and my pastor, in the case this is a Christian woman, advise this probably isn't a good person, not someone I would want as a husband. Well, I can ignore that because God has actually told me through these inward hunches, through these feelings I have, that it's okay. And then later on, if whatever they felt doesn't come to pass, they can say, they can, brush it off. Oh, I guess that wasn't really God. I guess I just need to learn. I need to pray more. I need to get more in touch with what God has to say. It is not a Christian teaching, but it's very popular, especially among Christian women, because now she can do whatever she wants. She can claim that God told her to do it because she had these feelings, and then she doesn't have to take responsibility for it later. It just basically gives her freelance to do whatever she wants. So we'll continue.
Whether it's Instagram and he DMs me, or whether we work on a music project together and then we start dating after that, I don't know. But I have just like this weird hunch. So I decided to delete it, and I was praying about that for a while because I was like, God, what should I do? Should I delete this? Is this going to put myself where I'm not in a position to be seen? Because ultimately, even if you look at the story of Ruth and Boaz in the Bible, Ruth put herself in a position to be seen. So it is.
Okay, for those of you who may not know the story of Ruth, the book of Ruth in the Bible, as she mentioned, tells the story of Ruth. Ruth essentially approached and pursued a man named Boaz, who ultimately married her. So this would be an example of a woman and she seeks counsel from her mother-in-law. Ruth was married to another man who then died. She ended up living with her mother-in-law. And when she met this man Boaz, her mother-in-law advises her on how to pursue Boaz. There's a lot more to the story, but it is an example of a woman deciding what she wants, seeking counsel from a wise person, and then taking action to get what she wants, which I think is pretty good advice. And if Jenna here is going to follow that advice, she needs to actively take steps towards obtaining the kind of husband she's looking for. There is, again, I challenge anyone to find somewhere in Scripture where it says if you just sit and pray, God will give you a wife or God will give you a husband, and you don't have to put any effort forward. No one is promised a relationship, nor is anyone entitled to one.
It is okay for us to put ourselves as women in a position to be seen, but I do believe that it should be, I know it's not going to be like this in every case, but the man to pursue the woman.
Okay, this isn't a biblical idea either. Now, it's very popular in many Christian circles, the idea that the man is supposed to be the one pursuing the woman, but I challenge her to find where it specifically teaches in the Bible, women, you are not to pursue your husband is supposed to pursue you. It's actually rather neutral, and you can, on that point, and you can find biblical examples, as she just mentioned, of women pursuing the man, like Ruth pursuing Boaz, or Esther pursuing King Xerxes, or whatever. But again, those are historical narratives. They're not necessarily prescriptive for Christians, but also I don't see anywhere in the Bible where it specifically says men are supposed to pursue, women are supposed to wait to be pursued. That's a popular idea among Christians, not specifically taught in the Bible.
And that's really what I want. I want to be in my role. I want to play my role as being the woman, and I want someone that is going to be an actual man and pursue me. Okay,
that may be what you want, but it doesn't mean you're entitled to it. Certainly, if she just wants to wait for the right man to pursue her, she's welcome to do that. But if a man that she wants does not pursue her, that's not his fault. It's not God's fault. You are not entitled to a relationship. You're welcome to want that, but it doesn't guarantee you're going to get it.
And a lot of times I found online that these people that I would talk to, and it would be hard because when I like someone, you guys, I really like someone. And it's hard for me to like someone, but then once I do like you, little things that you do will really hurt me. Like if I go on your Instagram.
Okay, so once I do like you, little things that you do will really hurt me. Attraction's not a choice, but I have to wonder, of the people she's attracted to, what is attracting her to them? Is it the fact that they're strong Christian men who share her values and that she really possesses the things she's looking for in a husband? Or is it primarily that they're physically attractive or have a certain demeanor that makes her attracted to them? I strongly suspect it's the latter, because as we're going to see in the video, she's going to say all these things that she wants in a man, but then anyone who's been around a church ought to know, all she would have to do is rattle these things off, and I'm pretty sure there are going to be 15 to 20 men immediately who will say, yeah, if I'm more than willing to date you if all I have to do is do those things. But then the woman who says this is like, okay, but I don't want to date you specifically. I'm just not attracted to you. Okay, so what really is important to you? Their Christian values, like you're saying here, or just being attracted to them because they're physically attractive or for whatever other reason? It's a question you need to answer.
And I see that you followed all these like girls, and you liked their pictures and they're in the bikinis and just like these little things that like I don't want my person doing that.
Okay, so she says here she doesn't want to date someone who finds other women attractive. Specifically, if she really likes someone, she doesn't want you to follow other girls' Instagram accounts and like their bikini photos. Again, if that is one of her rules or one of her most important things, I'm pretty sure walk into most any church, get together all the young single men, and if this woman's reasonably physically attractive, I mean, if she just stood up and said, "I'm just looking for a man who, if you date me, you can't like or follow any other girls' Instagrams," and that's one of my rules. I'm pretty sure there are plenty of men who would throw their hands up. Yes, I'll absolutely date you. Of course, is she going to want to date them? Nah, not necessarily. She wants to be attracted to them too. So if the guys she's attracted to aren't willing to follow these rules, well, that's not their fault. I mean, you may want someone who does that, but they're not required to follow your rules, especially if they have other options available to them. And frankly, it's the irony here is that women want to make all these rules for men to follow. If you want to date me, if you want access to me, these are all the rules you have to follow. But if a man just capitulates to her every demand and says, "Yes, I'll follow all those rules just for the effort to date you," well, then he just seems like he's a loser because he follows all her rules. He's not a leader. He's not confident, and that's not attractive in a man. So the irony being, even if I'm sure there are men who would be willing to follow all her rules, but in being so willing to do so, they then disqualify themselves. They make themselves less attractive. So continuing.
Like, I know those things might sound like little, but I believe that these little seeds that you plant, like what you do, those will manifest into different actions. And how you act now in your singleness is going to be the exact way that you're going to act if you were to have a partner or a marriage.
Okay, that in and of itself is true. The way you act when you're single is going to reflect on how you act once you're in a long-term relationship. And I've said myself, one of the best indicators of future behavior is past behavior. She's right on that point. But again, men do not have to follow all her rules. I want to date you, but if you're going to date me, you can't find other women attractive. You can't like their bikini photos. You can't look at other women and be attracted to them if you want to be with me. Well, if the men she's attracted to are unwilling to follow those rules, tough. You're not entitled to those men wanting to follow your rules or be in a relationship with you. Again, I'm pretty sure whatever church you're going to, you can probably find a man who'll tell you that, yeah, he's willing to follow all these rules if he gets to date you, but are you attracted to him? Probably not. The question is, what are you willing to sacrifice? No one is entitled to a relationship. If the man that you want to date isn't willing to date you or follow the rules that it requires to date you, that's not his fault and you're not entitled to him. You can either accept the fact that he's not willing to follow your rules and not date you, and choose to remain single, or you can lower your standards and get into a relationship. But you're not entitled to having a man who meets that you're both attracted to and is willing to follow your rules. And again, I strongly suspect that the kind of men she's attracted to, if they were to capitulate and start following all her rules, she would suddenly find them less attractive.
That's why it's important to get rid of pornography addictions and all those different types of things early on whenever you're by yourself, because it's not just going to magically go away whenever you meet someone. And I haven't kissed or had sex or even kissed anyone since I redevoted my life to Christ, which will be 5 years.
Okay, important point here. So she says, I haven't had sex, I haven't kissed anyone since I redevoted my life to Christ, which would be 5 years ago. Now again, I don't know this woman, I don't know her past, but that sounds pretty much to me like an admission that she is not a virgin. She's had sex with a man before at some point 5 years ago. Which, if you're a Christian man who has Christian values, or you're just a man, period, you're looking to have a successful marriage, that is an instant disqualifier in my mind, because as I've pointed out many times, there is powerful research that confirms this. one of the strongest indicators of whether or not a marriage is going to be a success is the number of sexual partners you've had prior to marriage. And in women in particular, once a woman is no longer a virgin, the likelihood that the marriage ends in divorce goes up significantly, and it goes up more the more partners she's had. So if I'm a Christian man, I'm still a virgin, and I want to have a successful marriage to a Christian woman who shares my values, it's pretty much, if you're not a virgin, instant disqualifier. Now, is that the case for all Christian men? Not necessarily, but I don't think it's unreasonable requirement on their part. But now watch what she's going to do to try to get those Christian men who she wants to marry, allegedly, watch how she's going to try and guilt them here and say that they're just as bad, that the fact that she's not a virgin doesn't really matter because they're guilty too. Listen.
This summer. And I really want some, and that's not the most important thing, because purity starts in your heart before it.
Okay, yeah, it's not the most important thing. The fact that she's not actually a virgin anymore isn't important because she's redevoted her life to Christ. And this, of course, is, yes, it's a tenet of Christian theology that if you genuinely repent of your sin, God will forgive you, but that doesn't mean that your sin never took place or that there won't be any consequences for it. Yet, especially in the church today, women are taught all the things you did in your past, they don't matter because the blood of Jesus covers it. It's exactly as if you were a virgin. There will be no consequences. Men, on the other hand, well, let's see what she has to say about that.
Starts in on your body. That's why that saying, save yourself for marriage, people rely so, and this is why I don't like purity culture, people rely so...
Incidentally, I don't like it either, but probably not for the same reasons.
So heavily on being pure and not doing the physical act of it, and they rely on save yourself for marriage because they are trying to save themselves, when in reality, if you don't have actual sex, but you've already looked at a woman with lust, you've already committed adultery with her in your heart.
Oh boy, here we have it. So even if you haven't had actual sex, even if you're physically a virgin, it doesn't mean you're sexually pure, because have you ever, men especially, have you ever looked at a woman with lust in your heart? Then you've committed adultery. You're not a virgin either. Therefore, even though I'm actually physically not a virgin, I've had physical sex, and you haven't, well, you're just the same as me because you've committed adultery in your heart. Okay, this is based on a gross misunderstanding of a passage that's found in Matthew 5. Let's go ahead and take a look there. For any of you who have a Bible, you can open it. If you don't, go on BibleGateway.com and look this up. This is Matthew chapter 5, starting in verse 21, and we're going to read the whole context here. So Jesus says, "You have heard that the ancients were told, 'You shall not commit murder, and whoever commits murder shall be liable to the court.' But I say to you that everyone who is angry with his brother shall be guilty before the court, and whoever says to his brother, 'You good for nothing,' shall be guilty before the Supreme Court, and whoever says, 'You fool,' shall be guilty enough to go into the fiery hell. Therefore, if you are presenting your offering at the altar, and there remember that your brother has something against you, leave your offering there before the altar and go. First be reconciled to your brother, and then come and present your offering. Make friends quickly with your opponent at law while you are with him on the way, so that your opponent may not hand you over to the judge, and the judge to the officer, and you will be thrown into prison. Truly I say to you, you will not come out of there until you have paid up the last cent." Continuing, here's the part she's referencing. "You have heard that it was said, 'You shall not commit adultery.' But I say to you that everyone who looks at a woman with lust for her has already committed adultery with her in his heart. If your right eye makes you stumble, tear it out and throw it from you, for it is better for you to lose one of the parts of your body than for your whole body to be thrown into hell. If your right hand makes you stumble, cut it off and throw it from you, for it is better for you to lose one of the parts of your body than for your whole body to go into hell." All right, so that's ending the reading there at verse 30. Now I read the whole, that's a long point, but I long read there, but I read the whole thing so that you get the context. So because this is, I know this argument well. It's been used hard, and it's been used quite far and wide within Christian circles, but almost no one stops to think about what the implications are of what they're saying. So what is the context of that passage? Basically, Jesus is preaching to a group of Jews who have been taught by the ruling religious class of the day that they can, by keeping the law perfectly, specifically the Old Testament law, by being perfectly righteous, they can earn God's favor and earn their way into heaven. What he's saying is that's impossible, because God's standard is absolute moral perfection. So even if you retain sin in your heart, even if you haven't actually committed the sin, you still have a sinful heart. In particular, even if you haven't murdered someone, but you're angry enough with them that you want to murder them, you have a sinful heart. The condition of your heart is sinful. So therefore, you can't just, as some people in that day would do, like the Pharisees would say, well, that guy committed a murder. Meanwhile, am perfectly righteous. Or, that guy committed adultery. Meanwhile, I've never committed adultery. I'm perfectly righteous. Jesus' point is, you're not perfectly righteous. You still have sinful intent in your heart. You would sin if you knew you could get away. The fact that you would sin if you knew you could get away with it shows that your heart is not right before God. He is not saying, therefore, that to be angry with your brother such that you want to murder him is the same as actually murdering him, or the lusting after a woman such that you want to commit adultery with her is exactly the same as actually committing adultery with her. And the fact that people who say this don't even really believe this shows, ask them this question. Have you ever been so angry with someone that you've fantasized about hurting them or killing them? If they're honest, of course, everyone has been that angry before. But now ask the question, do you think you deserve to go to life in prison without the possibility of parole? Because that's what you would demand of someone who'd actually murdered someone. And, Jesus just said it's exactly the same, right? Well, no, of course I don't believe that. It's not exactly the same. Oh, really? So then why is it that the passage that's one passage. It's not two separate statements Jesus made in different contexts. Why is it that being angry with your brother such that you want to murder him and having a sinful intent to your heart is not exactly the same as actually murdering someone, but only a verse later when Jesus says having lust in your heart and wanting to commit adultery, yes, that is exactly the same as actually committing adultery. Therefore, there is no difference between the fact that I've actually had premarital sex and the fact that you've lusted after a woman in your heart. See, it's just, once you understand the context of the passage, that is absolutely not what it's talking about. We can discuss whether or not it's good, what exactly Jesus means by lusting after a woman. I think you do have to understand what the Greek verb was in that case and what it implies, but I'm not going to go in that discussion now. My point is, on one hand, she wants to say, if you're a Christian woman and you've had sex, it's no big deal, because all the Christian men who are virgins that you are prospective marriage people you might want to marry, well, if they try to say, I don't want to marry you because you're not a virgin, you're not a virgin either, because if you ever looked at porn, well, then you've lusted after a woman and you committed adultery too. We're no different, you or I. Yeah, it's just, the passage does not support that. It's just a way of trying to guilt men into wanting relationships with them, when the reality is, the reason many Christian men don't want relationships with a woman like this is because she's not a virgin. They know the game. They know that the statistics support, if you're not a virgin, the likelihood that the marriage ends in divorce goes up significantly. In today's day and age, men have to be very serious about the prospect of divorce. All it takes is her wanting a divorce, and she could walk away with full custody of your children and half your stuff. But I somehow suspect Jenna hasn't thought about that quite a bit.
So whether or not you actually do the physical act, that doesn't matter. And
Yes, it does matter, Jenna. Having actual sex has physical consequences, and it's well established that it leads to it's more likely that you're going to be dissatisfied in your eventual marriage and therefore divorce a man. I mean, I would ask you this, Jenna. Do you oppose no-fault divorce? Would you be willing, when you get married someday, are you willing to sign a contract that would state that if you initiate divorce, your ex-husband gets full custody of your children and all the joint assets? Would you be willing to do that? If not, then I'd say you have to rethink your position here.
I really want someone that like call me really old-fashioned, and I'm not perfect, and maybe, I'm sure I've probably hurt people's feelings too, I don't know, but I really want someone that I don't have to worry about those little things. I don't have to worry about, I was watching that's...
Okay, you don't, she's saying she doesn't want a relationship with someone who's looking at other women or finds other women attractive or likes their photos on Instagram. Again, I'm pretty sure you can find, you could go through your church and you'd find a single man who, if he said, yeah, if that's all it takes to date you, I'm in, I'll do it. But then, of course, is that all you want, or do you want to you want to find him attractive as well? Well, if you want to find him attractive as well, and then really that's not the problem here. The problem is you can't find a man who you're both attracted to and who's willing to follow all your rules. And again, you have two choices here. You can either accept that and choose to remain single, or you can lower your standards and date someone who meets those lower standards. But men do not owe you a relationship. God does not owe you a relationship. Who really is holding you back from being single here? Is it men, or is it God, or is it you and the sense of entitlement you have? You feel you're entitled to a man who meets all these different characteristics. But then also, what really? I would ask you this: what exactly do you bring to the table? What is it that why is a man's life going to be so much better off with you in it as opposed to some other woman? And further, why should he have to overlook the fact that you're not a virgin, and therefore the chances that your marriage is not successful are significantly higher than if he goes with a girl who is a virgin?
Podcast with Sadie Robertson and this guy that she had on the podcast, and it was like dating a person with character. Like maybe you're anxious and maybe you're insecure, or maybe you're anxious and maybe you have these doubts and you have anxiety with him because you're wondering what he's doing on his phone and all these other things because he hasn't given you actual reasons for him to trust you.
Okay, so here she wants to date a man with character. Fair enough, but is that the only thing you want? Because you go into any church, you're going to find tons of Christian women complaining, where are all the good men? And, it's not just church. I mean, this is women in general, but it really shows that Christian women aren't as different from secular women as they claim to be. Where are all the good men? I want to date a man with character. And, her mother or her pastor might say, well, look at Bob over there. He's a man of character, isn't he? Oh, yes, Bob certainly is, but, he's just not for me. And, of course, Bob probably isn't a terribly physically attractive guy, and that's her choice. If she doesn't want to date or be in a relationship with someone who's not physically attractive, that's her prerogative. But again, it's not just that she can't find a man with character, it's that she can't find a man with character, by her definition, who she's also attracted to. And that's not something she's entitled to. You can want a man who's physically attractive, confident, and has all these qualities that make you attracted to them, follows all your rules, like I can't be attracted to other women or like their bikini photos on Instagram, and I've got good moral character. That may be what you want, but you're not entitled to it. You can either accept and further, even if you do meet that man, why should he want to be with you? Why are you specifically going to make his life so much better as opposed to all the other women that probably want him too, considering he meets all these particular categories? If he's got options, why should he pick you? Why are you single? Is it because are men at fault? Is God at fault? Or might it be you and your own unrealistic standards?
And it's so easy with social media. It completely wrecks me, you guys. When I like someone and I go on their Instagram or I go on their social media and I see with public information, because it's all public information, so girls, check to see who, and this is to protect your heart. You don't have to be crazy about it, but who are they following? Especially after they so-called told you that they like you. They're going to go follow Rachel, Ashley, Elizabeth, Hunter, all these other girls. And
okay, if this is an attractive guy, then he probably has multiple girls who are interested in him. And again, if him, having friendships or following other girls on Instagram, if that's a problem for you, you're not willing to date someone who's doing that, okay, don't date him. But you don't get to complain then that you're single when there probably are other guys who would be willing to do this if that's the only thing you're worried about. The fact that you're single and complaining about this tells me the problem isn't that there aren't men who will follow these rules. There aren't men who have Christian character as you define it. Problem is the men you're attracted to aren't willing to do this. Well, tough. They're not required to, and further, if they've got multiple women attracted to them, why should they pick you and exclude all others? You may say that's immoral. Well, fine, you're welcome to believe that, but you also don't get to dictate how they live their lives. That's between them and God, just like your behavior is between you and God. You are not entitled to a relationship. You're not entitled to having a man that you're both attracted to and follows all your rules. You can either choose to date a man who is willing to follow these rules, or you can lower the standards. Or you can choose to date a man you are attracted to. You don't get to demand that the man you're attracted to also do all these other things.
All their pictures, and then it's some of the girls that these Christian guys follow, it's they post these bikini pics and these just very scandalous things, and I personally, if you're fine with that, whatever, but
yeah, if you're fine with that, whatever. Now, I'm not going to get into the discussion about what modesty really means and whether or not the Bible teaches that women can't wear bikinis. Believe me, we'd go on for hours about that. But if that's where she's coming from, she thinks it is sinful, it's an unchristian behavior, well, I hate to break it to you, You're not entitled to a man who also shares that view and who's willing to give these things up, to not give that up, not look at girls' pictures in bikinis and like their photos or anything. There probably are men who'd be willing to say, yeah, I want to date a woman like you, Jenna. Here's my phone. You can have the password. Therefore, you always have evidence that I'm not doing these things. Just so long as I have an opportunity to date a wonderful Christian woman like you, I'll follow all your rules. I'm sure there are men out there who are willing to do that. Jenna's just not attracted to them. So has she stopped to consider what exactly is it that attracts her to men? Is she really looking for primarily a man with character who's willing to follow all these rules, or is she primarily willing to look for a man she's attracted to? You got to look at what a woman does, not just what she says. And all these rants with women complaining about they're single, can't find a guy who's willing to do all these things, it inevitably shows that their actions don't match their words. They say they want a guy with qualities A, B, and C, but the reality is their actions show they're only interested in guys with qualities X, Y, and Z, and they're mad that guy with quality X, Y, and Z won't also adopt qualities A, B, and C. Hey, the choice is yours. Run after the guy who you're attracted to, but who's cheating on you and has other women interested and isn't willing to be exclusive, or date a guy who's willing to be loyal. And that's the funny thing is, when asked the question, would you rather have a confident, high-status man who lots of women are attracted to, but you have to share him, like he's not willing to be exclusive with you, he's going to have relationships with other women too? Or would you rather have a loyal, mediocre man who's going to be loyal to you and faithful and not cheat on you with other women? Most women answer that question, I'd rather have the loyal, mediocre man, but their actions show otherwise. They continue to chase after the high-status man, even though it should be clear from his behavior that they're never going to commit.
Cannot talk to someone that likes those pictures, because it will always make me feel like I'm never good enough for you. You will never learn how to give that to God, and I just will always be thinking about if you're thinking of other people.
Okay, newsflash, Jenna. Men are biologically built to be attracted to attractive women. There is no man out there, Christian or otherwise, who is not attracted to multiple women. It's how men are built. Just like the fact that women are naturally built hypergamous. They're attracted to the highest value man. That's the way it is. Now, do I think men and women should both, use their brains and not just chase their biological functions? Of course. I've talked about it in my video series Defending Traditional Marriage, and why I think marriage is an important institution and does make society better despite our biological impulses. But it's just making a demand like this, I'm never going to be able to talk to a man who's attracted to women other than me. Good luck, Jenna. You're not going to find that. That is an impossibly high standard. If you think that is what you are entitled to, good luck finding a man. You can either accept the fact that there are men, don't get me wrong, there are men out there who would be willing to curb those attractions. They'd be willing to fight that within themselves to have a relationship with you. But then, of course, you might not be attracted to those men. I got to ask you, what is it that attracts you to the men you're attracted to? Is it really, and if you really are most attracted to Christian men with good character who are willing to follow all these rules, why is it that you're single?
Because you like these things on their Instagram and on their social media. So I just decided that the online dating profiles, it's so based on looks, and while I do want to be attracted to my partner...
there we go. She wants to be attracted to her partner. So she doesn't just want someone with character. She doesn't want someone who's going to follow her, don't like other girls' bikini photos rules. She also wants a guy she's attracted to. Maybe what she wants, but again, you're not entitled to that. And further, even if you do find that guy, you find the guy who's over 6 feet tall, makes 6 figures, very handsome, doesn't, is a good, strong Christian man of character and doesn't like bikini photos on Instagram. Once you find him, why should he pick you? Why are you going to make his life so much better than another girl, especially if he's got options?
100,000%. I don't like the idea of me deciding if I like someone based on their profile, and then it's you have to give it's how many people should I give a chance to? There's so many people that DM me. It's oh my gosh, it gives me terrible anxiety, and then it's the guys that I choose, they end up screwing me over and hurting me, and I'm just...
Yeah, the guys that I choose end up screwing me over and hurting me. That tells me she's choosing them primarily on being physically attracted to them, not on the fact that they've demonstrated character or her Christian values. So who's at fault here? Who is she choosing to date? You choose who you spend time with. No one decides that but you. You've chosen to date men who don't share your values and have therefore hurt you. there are other men out there who do share your values and would be willing to date you, but you don't want to date them because you're not attracted to them. You're not entitled to anything, Jenna. You can choose to date the loyal man who shares your values, who may not be the most physically attractive in the world. You can choose to date the physically attractive guy who's probably never going to settle down because he's got options. But you can't demand that the high value man follow all these rules and develop and adopt your Christian values and Christian character. The choice is yours. You decide who you spend time with, who is really responsible for you being single. And before you start getting and before you say you believe God's going to bring the man to you, I challenge you to find anywhere in Scripture where God promises you a husband, or that if you just pray and be a good Christian, He'll give you the kind of husband you want. That is the prosperity gospel. It's not something that's taught anywhere in Scripture.
My heart is so tired. Like, I literally can't do it. Like, I'm not perfect, but I just can't do it.
Okay, so the men you're not perfect. The men you're gonna date aren't perfect either. What are you willing to sacrifice? The fact that you're single tells me your standards are probably pretty high. And again, what do you bring to the relationship? Even if you find this perfect guy who's you are attracted to and has good Christian values and is willing to follow all your rules, why should he want to date you and only you?
You guys. So I don't know what your experience has been, but I wanted to share that with you because the world of online dating, why am I like dancing? The world of online dating, I believe it's toxic. And
Okay, the world of online dating is toxic. Fair enough, I think it probably is in many ways, but I'd say the reason the world of online dating is toxic is because it's led a lot of women to believe that they're more attractive than they really are. Women get on these dating sites, they get all kinds of messages from men who tell them how beautiful and wonderful they are, because these men are desperate. They want a relationship so bad, they're just sending messages to any women they can find, hoping that if they tell them they're beautiful and wonderful, they'll date them. When the reality is, most of these women are pretty mediocre. They are not the cream of the crop, and they've not demonstrated that they're going to be good wives, yet they start to believe they're so wonderful just because all these men are messaging them. They must really deserve someone special. Doesn't work that way.
every single guy that I've met, it's, again, maybe this is just a coincidence, but like,
I don't think it's a coincidence. I think it's because the men you've dated, you've chosen to date for reasons other than Christian values and Christian character. The things you claim are most important to you, but your actions show otherwise.
they're not men of their words. Like it's just like so frustrating because like people say that they're Christians. They say that they want a good girl. They say they want a good girl, but then they go like and message and Snapchat all these other freaking females. It's just like, if you think she's that cool, and if you really like, if one woman isn't enough for you, that's fine. Go be with all these other women. I'm not gonna be waiting here whenever you decide that you actually want to be with someone.
Actually, you probably will be, because you could choose. So you don't want men who are like that, yet you've dated them. Yet there are other men, again, probably, I guarantee you, if it's not at your church, find another church. It ain't gonna be long before you find a man who's professes Christian values, who's prepared to demonstrate those Christian values. And another thing, early on within dating, does she make them demonstrate? Does she just accept that they say they're Christians, or does she make them demonstrate their knowledge of Christianity and their Christian values? I know of plenty of married Christian women with successful relationships who can tell you their story about how when they started dating, one of the first things they did was grill the male on Christianity, on knowledge of Scripture, on whether or not they shared the values, and they were able to disqualify men who weren't able to do that. And of course, the younger the woman is, and if she's still a virgin, the more bargaining power she has in that kind of conversation. But this is a woman she professes Christianity. She's already more or less said she's not a virgin, so that's a huge, lowers her sexual market value greatly, both for men in general, but also especially in the Christian marriage market. And she's by what she's telling me here, that she's had all these problems with the men she's dated, she's clearly picking men not on the basis of their ability to demonstrate Christian values, but on the fact that she's physically attracted to them. Again, it's her prerogative, but who's really at fault for why you can't find the man who has all the things you want? Is it really men? Is it God? Or do you have impossibly high standards? And have you stopped to consider, have you ever stopped to ask, what am I bringing to the table? Why should a Christian man who's both attractive and has all these values, why should he want to be with me?
I'm not. Oh, I don't like how this lighting is like, wow, this was like this the whole time. But so I deleted my accounts, and I was just having such bad anxiety because there was like, and then it's like, how many people is it okay to talk to at the same time? Like, it's okay to get to know and talk to people at the same time, but like once you start like actually texting, it's like, I don't really believe that you should be texting more than one person at the same.
Okay, you don't believe you should be texting more than one person at the same time. Women do this all the time. Women are naturally hypergamous. So they, especially when they're on dating apps like Tinder, if they match with multiple guys, typically they'll start talking to multiple guys, and they'll try to narrow it down to the highest value guy they can find, who they're, of course, willing to ditch the moment a higher value guy comes along. That's their prerogative, but it also means it's much more likely that when they finally pick a guy, he's going to pump and dump them. Because if he really is as high value as they believe him to be, he probably has lots of girls that are seeking his attention, and you're nothing special. You're a pump and dump to him. Whose fault is it? What criteria are you using to evaluate the men you date? You can choose to value looks and status and money. You can choose to value Christian values, Christian character, ability to follow rules. You can't demand that there be a man out there who's willing to have all those things. And if you think you're entitled to that, again, why don't you look in the mirror and ask yourself, what do I bring to the table? Why should that man want to be with me and only me, especially if he has options?
Time, like that's different than just like having a conversation. I don't know. There's just like so many things to it, and it just like gives me terrible anxiety. Like when people fall short of their words, it just like, even like little things, like if someone's like, oh, I'm gonna call you, and then they don't call you, like just
How many men watching this have ever had a woman say that to them? I'll text you, I'll call you, and then they ignore you and ignore your messages. This isn't an exclusively male thing.
like little things that that maybe guys don't think are a big deal, but to girls, like if you're trying to earn someone trust, like those little things make a huge difference in us wanting to open up to you.
Eh, how much do you suspect that this girl would run right back to whoever it was she's most attracted to, the guy who's over 6 feet tall, makes a lot of money, handsome, muscular, that guy who breaks all these rules, broke her heart. If he called back, how much you want to bet she's going to run right back to him? She may say otherwise, but again, you got to compare what women say compared to what they do. They make these videos ranting about how all these things are most important to them, and then their actions always prove otherwise because they always run back to the guy who's not going to do this. To quote Rollo Tomasi, women make rules for betas and break rules for alphas. And that's exactly the case when I reviewed Tommy Lauren's rant. It's exactly the case with this rant.
And a lot of the times we really want to open up, but we've been so damaged and let down and betrayed and hurt that we literally can't do it. And this is what I tell people that have tried to talk to me recently. I'm like, I can't do it. Like I'm so hurt. I literally can't do it because I get sick. So I just deleted.
Okay, you can't deal with the anxiety of trying to find a marriage partner. Well, why are you single again? You clearly want to be in a relationship. You've made this video, but if you got this much anxiety about dating, hate to break it to you, you're going to have to get over that. What if, imagine how absurd it would be if a man, Christian or otherwise, made a video, I really want to be in a relationship, but I just can't approach women. I have so much anxiety about being rejected. And the reality is there are a lot of men that are out there like that. What are they told? Suck it up and deal with it. If you're not willing to put yourself out there, you're not going to find anybody. Now, of course, it's complicated by the fact that in today's day and age, even approaching a woman and saying hello can get you charged with sexual harassment, but, you know, that's a separate discussion in and of itself.
Everything. And I was like, whatever. So I told God, it's not like I'm completely off the grid. I still have social media. So if you really want me with someone, then you're going to have to present us to each other.
Are you serious? Again, not all the people watching here are Christians, but if anyone who's read the Bible who understands Christian theology, do you really think you can demand this of God? God, if you want me to be with someone, this is what you're going to have to do. That's not how it works, Jenna. If you really believe in the God that's talked about in Scripture, God makes those decisions. He does not rely on you to tell him what he will or will not do. And in fact, really, the pattern I see in Scripture is that there are certain things God has superintended to happen. There are certain decisions that have been left to you. And I know there are a bunch of theologians out there that would disagree with me. That's a separate discussion in and of itself. But I don't know of a single theologian who studied his Bible who believes that a woman in her arrogance, a young woman in her arrogance like this is going to dictate to God what he will do if he wants her to be in a relationship.
On those social media sites, because right now I just have to take a break from online dating. It's just
Okay, well then you might be choosing to not date. And another thing to keep in mind, I don't know how old she is, but it's been at least 5 years since she had sex, so she's at least in her later 20s. The older she gets, the less attractive she's going to be to a marriage-minded man that has all the characteristics she wants. So, clock's ticking, Jenna. What exactly are you looking for in a man? Are you willing to lower those standards at all? Bear in mind, you're welcome to have whatever standards you want, but the longer you wait, the less attractive you're going to be to the men that you actually want.
just too much for me. And it makes me anxious. It makes me pull my hair out. It makes my trichotillomania so much worse. I pulled out my eyelashes. These are fake. I don't know. There's so much more to that, but that's basically it. So most women have experienced a sexual experience that has either been violent, unfulfilling, forceful, lacking.
Okay, so most women do not stay virgins before marriage. That's basically what you said. That's true. It's unfortunate because I think if they chose to stay virgins before marriage, their prospects of finding a good man and having a successful marriage would be much higher. But notice she says violent, unfulfilling. She's not, if it was really violent in that you're talking about, a word I'm not going to say because I know it'll get this stream demonetized, but the use of force, then why didn't you, have you called the police? Have you reported this person? No, I mean, what she's really talking about is sexual experiences that women have had that they later regret. Okay, maybe you regret them. Doesn't mean you didn't consent at the time. Doesn't mean you're not responsible for the consequences of those choices now.
Enthusiastic consent. And because of that, whenever we go to choosing someone who we want to be with, you have to understand on the other end of the spectrum that we want to be with someone that makes us feel safe and we can trust their character by their actions. So
okay, we want someone who makes us feel safe. We can trust their character by their actions. Then why do you continue to keep choosing men primarily on the basis of other factors like, physical attractiveness, confidence, how much money they make, whether or not they're in shape? And again, I'm not complaining about the fact that women are generally attracted to a certain kind of man. That's just the way it is, and they're entitled to valuing what they want to value in men. What is ridiculous is the fact that women try and claim, all I want is a man with good character, all I want is a man willing to follow these rules, all I want is a man willing to make me feel safe, and then they run out and keep chasing those same bad men that they claim they don't want. You decide who you spend time with, you decide who you pursue relationships with, and no one is entitled to a relationship. Who really is at fault for the situation you're in regarding relationships?
it might seem like all these accusations that I'm making and these claims that I'm making sound a little bit, that sounds a little bit jumping to conclusions.
Yeah.
But a lot of the times it's right, because a lot of things, what does the world run on? The world runs around money and sex.
Okay, and it's been that way for thousands of years now. Your point being?
Those are the two basic things that this world runs on. If you want to know how...
Funny, the world runs on money, sex, and I would add power in there. Money, sex, and power. And women are generally attracted to men who have lots of money, have lots of sex, and have lots of power. Now, she can say, well, I'm a Christian, I value different things. Fair enough. Then why aren't you pursuing men who exemplify those values and are instead chasing after men who I suspect you are attracted to on the basis of their money, their sexual attractiveness, and their power? You decide who you spend time with. No one decides that from you, but you. Now, granted, if someone actually forced themselves on you, report them to the police, adjudicate it the appropriate way. Don't claim that you were somehow manipulated into it or you didn't really consent.
How easy it is and how weak a lot of men are. And I'm not saying this. This is just literally true, because it's like I used to live in a different lifestyle too. I know girls.
Again, admission, she's not a virgin. She has things in her past that make her less attractive to a marriage-minded Christian man who has saved himself for marriage and who does exemplify all the values that she claims she wants and probably is attractive as well.
Girls that have lived in different lifestyles that have walked this out It's so easy to distract men. All you need is a pretty girl. That's it. And it's easy to distract women. All you need sometimes is a fine man and some cash.
Okay, so that's, I'd say, a tacit admission on her part that those are the kind of men she's attracted to, not the ones that she's claiming she's attracted to, the good character rules. Who are you going to decide to date?
Like, everything is twisted. This is like my talking stick. So I'm saying this because whenever we choose someone, I'm just giving some brothers some helpful tips out there.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, again, women, there are plenty of men, I'm sure Christian men, who are going to watch this video and say, got it, these are all the rules I've got to follow. The reason I'm single is because I'm not following all these rules. And then they're going to run into church, say, hey, I watched Jenna Harmon's video, I know all the rules I need to follow, date me. And the girls will be like, I'm not attracted to you. And, they probably aren't. But the irony being, women are not attracted to men who capitulate to them and follow all their rules. Those men come across as weak and needy and are not leaders, which is what women want. So the irony is, women say, I'm only going to date you if you follow all these rules. If you follow all the rules, they're not going to be attracted to you. They are their own worst enemy. They want men to be both alphas and betas at the same time. It just doesn't work that way. Jenna, you are free to pick whoever you want to date, and especially men and women who are both looking for marriage, who have stayed virgins until marriage, who know what they're looking for in a partner, and got around to it early. They are in a much better position to bargain than someone who did not, like you. You have made decisions that have consequences, which mean that if you want a Christian husband, you're probably going to have to lower your standards. You're probably going to have to marry someone who also has baggage, who may not be as attractive as you like. You're not entitled to getting everything you want.
If you are genuinely interested in someone, don't just give someone a chance just to give someone a chance. Only give someone a chance, pray about it, and start.
And then pray about it again. She says this to give divine authority to her impulses. She could pick a man. She could be wise, as the book of Proverbs talks about. Pick a man on the basis of their demonstrated character, their ability to be a provider, their Christian values, and of course all of that requires using your brain, or she can pick a man based on who she's attracted to, and most likely get a man who's not going to be faithful to her and not follow all those things, but that would require her to actually make her own decision and be responsible for it. Instead, she'd rather pray about it and then claim that whatever emotional feelings she has are not just her feminine impulses, but are in fact divine messages from God. This is really one of the reasons in cultures past a girl's father picked her husband for her, because for the most part women are incapable of picking men for rational reasons. They can only follow their tingles, which is why again, I'm not advocating that women be forced to have their fathers pick their husbands, but it was for a reason, and women were the better off for it, in my opinion.
You're asking yourself, how can I show her that I'm true to my word and that I'm a man of integrity?
And if that's your primary focus, odds are she's not going to find you attractive. She'll see it as being weak and capitulating to her every demand, not being a leader, and not exemplifying the characteristics that she's attracted to.
How can I show her that she can trust what I say? If you really want to impress her, you need to ask yourself and have a conversation with God and say, how can I show her that I am who God says I am, and that I want to protect her spirit?
Okay, and how can you, Jenna, show him that you're the kind of woman he should want in a wife and a mother, and that your past decisions? Further, you say you've rededicated your life to Christ. I'm curious what prompted that, because I've met a lot of these born-again virgins in the church, and that, I was a bad girl, I slept around, but, God has shown me that was wrong, and I've repented, and now I'm pure before the eyes of the Lord. When you look at their behavior and how old they are, and the reality is they probably don't actually see anything wrong with what they did. They don't actually seem repentant and genuinely sorrowful about what they did in their youth. They basically just realized that they're running out of options. They need to get married and get married fast, so now they've suddenly found Jesus. They haven't actually changed the kind of man they're attracted to. They just know they're never going to be able to lock that man down, and they're getting desperate to find a husband, and probably will divorce you again because they're not attracted, because ultimately they'll find they're not attracted to you, and don't actually have the values that they profess.
How can I show her this step by step by respecting her?
And I forgot to say there again. So the Christian men who are looking for Christian wives, they ought to be, they ought to expect. Of course, Jenna would probably disagree, but I would ask Jenna, how are you and your Christian sisters going to demonstrate to these men that you actually possess these values and actually are going to be a wife and a mother, well, and submit to your husband as the Bible teaches?
Her boundaries and wanting to form a connection with her by honoring her under God, because she is God's daughter.
And there, she is God's daughter. Doesn't mean that she's a quality wife. She's going to be a quality wife or a quality mother. Any man out there could say, "I am God's son. I am loved by the Lord." Great. Doesn't mean that you're going to be a good husband or a good father. Doesn't mean women are going to be attracted to you. and it sword cuts both ways. Just because you're Christian women are overwhelmingly taught that they're just these amazing prizes just because they're female. No. Does God love you? Yes. The Bible teaches He loves everyone. Will He forgive you of your sin if you genuinely repent? Yes. That's the case for everyone. Will He therefore promise you exactly the wife or the husband you want because you've repented? No, that is not taught anywhere in the Bible. That is something called the prosperity gospel. It might sell a lot of books, it might make you feel good. It's not taught in the Bible.
Not going online, watching porn, watching these
and again, porn is a favorite topic of Christian women because they know most men have looked at porn, so they can claim, if you've ever looked at porn, you've committed adultery, you're just as bad as I am. We can debate whether or not looking at porn is a sin. We can debate whether or not looking at porn is even good for you. What it is not is exactly the same as actually having adulterous or premarital sex. Those are two different things. You can argue they're both harmful, but the degree to which they're harmful that's something else we can discuss, and it is not the same as actually having premarital sex or actually committing adultery.
These girls on Instagram, and by the way, if she's not saved and you're heavily into the faith, that's a no too. And I'm sorry if this offends you, but you can't be dating people that don't align up spiritually with you. You can't.
Okay, and I would agree if you want to have a Christian marriage with Christian values, you need to marry someone who's also a Christian, but then that might exclude certain men that you're attracted to. I mean, and you don't get to demand that those men become Christians just because you're attracted to them. No one is owed a relationship. You're free to have whatever standards you want, but if you find your standards are too high and can't meet a man who's willing to meet them, you can either choose to remain single or lower your standards until you do find a man who meets them. The choice is yours. God's not at fault for you being single. Men aren't at fault for you being single.
Can't. It's not equally yoked. I believe it's sinful, and they're going to pull you down and distract you because you need.
Yeah, and that goes both ways. For the Christian women who are dating non-Christian men under the guise that they're going to make them become Christians by giving them the sex that they want, it doesn't work that way.
You need someone that you can run the race with. You need someone that is going to lift you up whenever you're going down, not going to pull you down completely because you see things completely different.
And there are probably men who meet those things. Again, I probably sound like a broken record at this point, but I guarantee you Jenna has met men who could qualify, who hold Christian values, who would be willing to follow all her rules, who I hope she'd be willing to follow their rules as well, because Christian men ought to have. That's another thing. Christian men ought to have standard. Why is it that Christian women are allowed to have all these standards for the men they date, but when a Christian man wants to marry a Christian woman, well, I want to marry a woman who's a virgin. Hey, just because she's not a virgin, if she's repented and God's forgiven her, you can't evaluate that. Well, I want a Christian woman who, wants to be a stay-at-home mom and raise my children with Christian values. Hey, just because she has a career doesn't mean she's not a real Christian. She hasn't repented. You're not allowed to consider that. I mean, the double standard just shows how badly feminism has infected the church and how Christian women who are like, I'm not like those narcissistic feminist women. Yeah, you are.
Is how you view sex, money, religion, how you view all of these things is going to manifest and develop in how you decide to grow as a couple and how you decide to grow your family and how you ultimately live your lives.
Then you, Jenna, ought to start considering men who exemplify these things and not men who you are simply attracted to. You cannot demand that a man is you're both attracted to a man and he's willing to do all these other things. And again, the question you ought to look in the mirror and ask yourself, assuming I do find a man who I'm attracted to, is a strong Christian, has all these values, is willing to follow these rules, why should he want to be with me and not all the other women available to him? Why should he be willing to overlook the fact that I'm not a virgin if he is a virgin? I suspect that's something you're not thinking a whole lot about. You've spent a lot of time in this video talking about all the things you're looking for in a man, all the demands that need to be met. How much time have you actually spent looking in the mirror and asking yourself, why should a man want to be with me and only me? Now we're getting close to the end of the video here. This final minute is just going to be her giving the standard shout outs for her channel. But I hope everyone watching learned something. Again, my point is not to harass or demean Jenna. All those watching, you are free to make your own decisions about who you're going to date, who you're going to marry. But you are not entitled to anything. If you're single and unhappy, you need to ask yourself an important question. Am I willing to are my standards too high? Or let me rephrase it. So if you're single, the problem is, and this is something else I've said too, there really is no such thing as an incel. There's this whole community of men who say, I'm an involuntary celibate and I'm angry about it. Look, if you lowered your standards enough, you could get laid. The question is, what are you willing to sacrifice? And that's not just sex, it's relationships. If you want to be in a relationship, if you lower your standards enough, you can get into one. What are you willing to sacrifice? And if you want to be in a relationship with someone higher quality, then you really ought to look in the mirror and ask yourself, why should this person want to be with me and only me? Think about it. And as always, that is my 2 cents. You can take it for what it's worth.